Thank you for joining me on the Darren Chatter podcast. I'm going to be reading some of my blog posts that I have written so that you can consume this information in an audio format versus reading the blogs if this is more to your liking. I'm going to share with you stories from my past as an athlete, as a coach, as a salesperson, as a business professional, as a VP of sales. Everything that I have learned and amassed along the way in my 50 years here on planet Earth, I'm going to hope to share with you in order to help you shorten your learning curve, understand maybe a little different way to look at things, and hopefully learn a few things along the way. So here was the podcast you tuned in for. I hope you enjoy it. Please reach out to me when you can and let me know your thoughts. Thank you. Hi, Darren here. Thanks for joining me for the podcast version of blog number 33. QTL, otherwise known as Quality Time Left. I wrote this blog June 21st, 2019, right after a fishing trip with my dad. On the blog itself at darrenchatter.com/blog and blog number 33, there's a cool picture of him fishing in one of our favorite spots at an undisclosed location here in Arizona. This was top of mind for me after this trip. My dad's getting older, as we all are. These trips are becoming few and farther between, and I just thought it was a good reminder about making sure that you take time for the people that you love. So this was the blog post as I wrote it. I am busy these days. I have taken on a few new endeavors, including actively pursuing public speaking and guest lecturing. I spend a lot of time writing, practicing my talks, and all of the other things that go along with promoting oneself. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle. Let the important things get put on the back burner. I'm trying my best to prioritize things in my life appropriately. One of the things that helps me do that is something my dad and I have talked about for many years. QTL, Quality Time Left. Quality time for my dad and I is spent fishing together. Of course, I visit on holidays and I call him at least once a week to check in. But given a choice, this is how we want to spend time together. That's him on the photo above, perched on his favorite spot in one of his favorite holes in one of his favorite streams here in Arizona that we frequent. It's his happy place, and mine too, for that matter. As you can see from the picture, it's a rugged canyon and physically demanding to get to. While plenty of people fish in the lower section that is easily accessible, this part of the stream is definitely difficult to get to. As he gets older, the number of trips we are going to have back into this rugged wilderness area are dwindling. It may sound sad, and it is, but it's not tragic. It's the natural order of things. People age, they slow down, and eventually they die. If they are lucky, that's how it goes. Many people die sooner than expected, and that's when the word tragedy may apply. We all think we're going to be living to 100 and die in a comfortable bed surrounded by our loved ones and doting family. But this is not always the case. The message of this blog is this: please be aware that everything comes to an end. As much as I hate to think about the day when my dad is no longer around, I know it's out there, looming somewhere in the future. The real problem is none of us know when that day will arrive. You have to start living your life cognizant of the fact that there is an end in sight. As much as I have on my plate to do this weekend, it can wait. My dad and I have an opportunity to fish together, and there isn't much more that should get prioritized over that. This may be our last trip together through that canyon. It may be one of the many scattered through the coming years. We don't know. But I know this: I treat it like it may be the last one, just in case. If you have fractured relationships with friends or family, I highly encourage you to do something about that before it's too late. Even if you don't, and things are great, you still need to make that call. Make time to go see them when you can. Once they are gone, and that will never, ever afford you the opportunity to see them again. Regret is a terrible thing, and what amplifies it is when you know you had time and you didn't take it. One of my goals is to make sure that I have as few regrets as possible, especially when it comes to things like fishing with my dad. Be sure that you live your life to the fullest because you never know when a major change is coming your way. As one of the first blogs that I ever wrote, this one's a little bit shorter, but I do still love the message and the sentiment behind this. My father and I are very, very close, and I have spent a lifetime following him around as a kid on the streams fishing and being in awe of how he seemed to have a magical fly rod where wherever he pointed it, he caught a fish. And then I remember the first time I ever caught more fish than he did on a fishing trip. I was so proud of myself. I couldn't believe it. I had idolized my dad and his fishing prowess for years and years. And when that day finally came, I was so happy for myself. And then I thought about it for a little while, and I was also sad too, because it marked a turning point in our relationship. And not that it was as evident as he's no longer able to fish or I moved to another state and we don't see each other, but it was that little shift where I leveled out one part of our relationship. Nowadays, when we go fishing together, he struggles. He has difficulty seeing to tie on the flies. He's a little slower to react, so he misses fish when they hit his line. I outfish him every time we go somewhere now. And the first time that happened, that made me very proud. And now there's a tinge of sadness behind it because I see how he is a shadow of his former self, how much of a struggle it is to get back into that canyon, how hard he works to catch a dozen fish in a day's time when I easily catch 3 dozen fish. It's difficult to see, but again, it is the natural order of things. Tragic would be that he attends my funeral. Sad is that I will attend his. But if we're lucky, it's the sad version that happens. We never know when the end is going to come. One of the things that prompted me to start writing and start speaking like I'm doing is I got in a head-on collision with a drunk driver on my way to go fishing with my dad in Payson. It was early in the morning. I was driving on the backside of Mount Ord, which is the highest mountain between Phoenix and Payson. And I got into a construction zone where the lanes were narrowed down to one lane with concrete barriers on either side. My car sits low enough that I could not see the headlights coming towards me above the concrete barriers. I was on a curve, and as I came around the curve and straightened out, I saw headlights. I screamed, "Oh my God," and boom, I got hit head on by a drunk driver. I was in the middle of nowhere, 45 minutes outside of Scottsdale, a little bit, about the same amount of time south of Payson, 5 o'clock in the morning, still dark out, and I got hit head on by a guy who was driving the wrong way, very, very intoxicated. I was super fortunate to have walked away from that accident with literally only a scratch on the back of my hand. Airbags deployed. My stuff got scattered everywhere and busted up inside the car. I climbed out of the car, and the other guy was so drunk, he opened up the door of his car and basically just poured out onto the highway and sat there. When the paramedics arrived 45 minutes later, they thought he had a head injury, and they air evac'd him down to Scottsdale to the hospital. I found out later that he was just so intoxicated, he was unresponsive for that reason, not because he had any injuries from the accident. My life could have ended in that moment, and I was on my way to go fishing with my dad one more time. I'm happy to say that that experience, while scary as hell, did not end my life or alter my life in some fashion, such as I'm now in a wheelchair or things like that. I was very, very lucky. And I'm actually doing some speaking with Mothers Against Drunk Driving to share my story in hopes to get more people to think about the consequences of decisions that they make, such as driving intoxicated. But back to the main point of the story here, the time before my dad and I went fishing, right before that accident occurred, that may have been our last time together. I could have been the one who died in that car accident and ended the times that he and I went fishing together. I assume that it's going to be him who goes first, but we had a real good scare of that not being the case, and it was a crystal clear reminder of what we've always talked about: quality time left. How many more times can we do this together without one of us not being here, without my dad not physically being able to hike back into that rugged canyon and spend a day fly fishing? I will always fly fish throughout my life, even when he's no longer here, but those trips will be much, much harder for me to do. And at some point, the enjoyment will come back. But I know looking downstream and not seeing him there is going to be very, very tough. So with that in mind, make sure, whatever your situation is in your life, that you make time for the people that you love. That includes your friends. Don't let time slip by and end up with regrets because somebody gets sick and dies, somebody has an accident and passes away, somebody moves out of state and you no longer see each other, or you're holding some petty grudge that you were mad about something that was brought up over Thanksgiving dinner last year, whatever it may be. Take time, make sure that you don't have any regrets to look back on. Because once something happens, it cannot be undone. Regret is a terrible thing. And the last thing you want is to live with regrets knowing that you had the opportunity to take action and you didn't. Believe me, that will eat away at you. And that is completely avoidable if you just take a little action. So whatever you need to do, pick up the phone, schedule a trip to see somebody, make plans to go to dinner once a week or once a month, whatever it is, take action now, because you don't have any idea how much quality time left you have with that person. Don't let it slip away. I wish you luck in your endeavors.